G'day guys, welcome back to Marble Mountain. It has felt like forever since the last episode. I've been neglecting Marble Mountain just a little bit, but we are back with some serious force, building probably one of the most anticipated places that has been very long requested by you guys, and a place that I've been wanting to build for ages. But you know what? I've just been waiting until we have a little bit of a map to work with before we even work on this city, because a lot of the other places in Marble Mountain are going to heavily influence what is going on over here. So of course, we are going to be building a desert city. This city is going to be a casino city, all the way tucked over in the corner of the Marble Mountain map. And the reason why I say it's going to be very influenced by the cities and places around Marble Mountain is because this is going to be a casino city. A lot of tourists are going to be coming to this place. A lot of people from Montana, from Oakwood, from all the towns we have around here, they're going to be flocking to this place, which means my infrastructure has to be pretty spot on. My networks need to be really well thought out, and the planning as well needs to be really well thought out. So that's what we're going to be doing over the next few weeks, just planning out how that city is going to look. And it's good to be back, just FYI. So we are going to be taking our journey from Oakwood, because this is the highway that's going to be stretching into that city. By the way, I'm just going to keep on referring to it as the city, because we have no name for this place at this very current state. So if you've got some ideas, just hit me up in the comment section. Alright, coming through this passage. This passage, by the way, we need to figure out how this is going to work, because we have to make some sort of transition from that temperate environment to this desert environment. So we're going to figure out what that's going to look like. And this is a place. This is what we have to work with. It's a bit rough, I'm not gonna lie. Like, we've got a lot of work to do. But we do have a fairly big plot of land to work with. We do have to figure out where the mountains are gonna sit around here, because being the border of the map, it just looks better with some mountains. Just sort of hides that border just a little bit. So we'll do some mountains, probably a biggish one over in the corner over here. And then in terms of what we already have, so we've got this highway, of course, that stretches from Montana and Oakwood. We do already have this community down here and this speedway as well that I want to integrate within this city. We also have this very windy road that comes from Chinchilla. We've got the train line too that we need to make that come into this place, because of course I do want it to be connected up through the Amtrak. What else? In terms of inspiration, so of course, if we're going to be building a city that's based around casinos, we're going to be taking inspiration from Las Vegas. So Las Vegas, it is probably one of the most, if not the most well-known casino city out there. So we are of course going to be taking inspiration from this place. Some things that I want to incorporate, I really like the idea that the strip that is the main hub for all the casinos is this one. It runs adjacent to the highway, and you can kind of see how it's actually comes from, like, it's the same direction, because before the highway they had that road, and then that road has become the main road, and that's where all the casinos live. So that's what we're going to be doing in my version 2. What we'll probably do is I'll probably make this road here, I'm going to probably stretch it out a bit further out like that, and this highway is going to run parallel to it, and that way it'll have that similar vibe. I'm going to try and scale it down quite a lot so that we're not building anything quite the size of Las Vegas, because it's just a little bit too big for the area that I have to work with. But in terms of the mountains, in terms of the layout, we're going to be going for a pretty similar place, minus the airport. I'll talk about that very shortly. But yes, the casinos, I mean, this is just going to be a super fun build when we finally get to it. Quick question. Do we include a monorail? I don't know, let me know. Might be sort of fun. So, if I'm not going to be taking ideas solely from Las Vegas, I'm also going to be taking ideas from another place that is a little less known, but is still very much a big tourist destination for the casinos, and that's Reno. And I'm going to be taking ideas from Reno because it's just a bit smaller. I think the layout is a little bit more manageable. I do like the transition. We're pretty much the same sort of transition from that temperate environment to this pretty dry environment that's down here. I also like the way that the highway snakes into the city too, so I'm going to be trying to do something similar. And then another thing is the way that the downtown sits. So the downtown in Reno is where all the casinos sit, but in Las Vegas, it's a little bit different. You have the strip that it has all the casinos on it, but then the downtown is actually over here. So you can sort of see how there's like the tourist destination, and then there's like the downtown. However, I'm not going to be doing that in my city. I'm going to keep my city. The downtown is going to be where all the casinos are. So they are my ideas going into this build. All right, back to the map. We have to try and incorporate these two places, these two builds, and the area that we have to work with is not absolutely massive. Hence the reason why we're not going to build an airport, because they're just too big, and I think it'll just won't fit within this area. We will be building an airport, but it's going to be in Montana somewhere. Oh no, what happened? Yeah, the airport will be over here somewhere. So there will be an airport, but it's not going to be over here. The last thing I want to talk about is the way that the city is going to interact with the rest of the places in Marble Mountain. So I've got to make sure that we have a fair amount of distance from this city and Chinchilla, and we also need to try and keep it feeling like it's pretty far away from Montana. I don't want it to feel like it's a really close place. I want it to feel very far away. So got to try and make sure that we're still getting that vibe going on, that it's a very distant city. And I need to try and figure out how I'm going to keep that going. So a couple of challenges, a couple of ideas. Very keen to hear your ideas as well. So please hit me up in the comment section. All right, let's do it. Alright guys, we do make some pretty good progress in this episode, trying to figure out where the roads and the layouts and how everything is going to fit in regards to the rest of the places in Marble Mountain, which is always, for me, the hardest part, is just trying to figure out how I'm going to fit in so many concepts and so much of a city into what is a fairly limited space. So quite happy with how this is going to be integrated within the rest of the map. And we're going to be starting it off by figuring out where some of the mountains are going to sit around here. Now, these are like, I reckon, 50 to 60% done. They're not like complete mountains. I would like to revisit these, add in a little bit more foliage, change a little bit of the ridges around here and stuff like that, but they're not totally done. They're just there as a bit of a placeholder to figure out if they're definitely the mountains I want in that location. And I do that quite often. I usually create the concept of that area, if that makes sense. So I won't terraform the entire mountain. I'll just sort of figure out how it's going to look, because there's nothing worse than just completely changing something when you've put in a lot of work into it. Unfortunately, there's no copy and paste feature for terraforming, so if you delete it, it's all gone. So yeah, you got to be a bit careful. And something that I've just copied and pasted was that build, the speedway that Impriture built for me. Don't worry, it's not gone. I've just copied it, and I'm gonna think about where I want that to sit, because I don't think that particular spot was the best location. So yeah, we'll revisit that and we'll place that down in another spot. So don't worry, it's gonna still be here. I think it's the best fit in this city. So one thing that I had to change as well was the area around here was too high up, and I didn't really notice that until I started working this area. And something that I did was I found out how high some of the areas were around Montana and around Chinchilla, and then I just used that same level of terraforming around here and noticed that it's like a huge difference. And I decided just to lower it down quite a lot, because that way this build's going to be hidden a little bit more from the mountains that are going to be around here. And that's really important in a build like Marble Mountain, because I have to try and make sure that not everything is visible from all angles. It's kind of nice that some places are sort of hidden, and it's all about that perspective, trying to make sure that this place feels more like an entire region rather than just like a whole bunch of really close cities. And that's sort of my trick when it comes to trying to fit in lots of different ideas in what is a fairly small location. I mean, the map size in City Skylines is pretty large, but at the same time, when you try and build like an entire state, it's not, you know, you got some challenges. And I'm also working on the highway around here. So what I wanted to do was I wanted the highway to feel as if it was, and of course, a more recent construction, but there was an original road that stretched out this way. So you can actually see this original road. It's connected up to this highway now. And I imagine that this original road that came into this desert city, they've used some of that road to then build one of the lanes of this highway. So you can sort of see how it's taken the same path, but then there is an area where it just stops and then the highway kind of takes over from there. And that is so common in a lot of cities. You actually notice that there is this main road that is generally going straight to the downtown, and you can see where it branches off and heads out into the greater region towards where a lot of the highways sit. And they usually run parallel to the highways if they're not integrated within the rest of the highway. And I always love finding these places when you drive into cities. You know, when you go on a road trip, it's sort of fun when you see those roads that run parallel to the highways, and you go, that was totally the original road. And sometimes they're like abandoned and they've got like, you know, tree roots coming through them and they're all cracked up, and some houses still sit on them, but others are just, you know, totally been, you know, turned into something else, or some of them are just, you know, really well maintained. I just think that's always a really interesting part about the way that cities are developed. So yeah, trying to include something like that. And that hasn't been my style. I've only really started doing that over the last, like, I don't know, 6 months or something. And I've noticed a really big improvement with the way that my cities start to take shape. So from the interchange that I built, the road sort of snakes into this desert, and the highway just totally stretches along the plain in a straight line. And I did that on purpose. It's sort of taken inspiration from Las Vegas. I know I did say I was going to try and do something similar to how the highway comes into Reno, but I think that's sort of more taking inspiration from the valley on the outer skirts of Reno, and then the highway coming into the city. I wanted to be a little bit more like Las Vegas. The reason why I wanted to do that is because, like, around the fringes of Las Vegas, there are all these there's like a whole bunch of like planning and all these roads that you can sort of see where there's going to be you know, much bigger expansion, but there's just a lot of roads, and there's like a couple of businesses and a couple of office blocks and some houses, but there's not much. And you might even see like a couple of hotels and casinos just stretched out this way, and they're really weird, and I kind of like that. So I'm gonna try and do something similar around here. So I'm hoping that stretch of highway is gonna have a bit of a weird outer city vibe that I'm pretty keen to start working on. This whole city, by the way, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Like, I'm really excited for what it's gonna look like, and I've got this idea for how I want to attract tourists to this area, and how I want it to really feel like a casino city, and how people are coming here purely for that reason. So yeah, I'm kind of interested to explore that and really capture that essence of a casino city. So yeah, pretty excited for it. And let me know if you guys have any suggestions for how to capture certain elements of those two places. I mean, first up, if you're from Las Vegas or from Reno, like, hit me up in the comments section. I'd like to remember your name so I can get some advice from you guys. But even if you've visited the place or those places, or if they're on your bucket list, like, hit me up. They're on my bucket list. They're two places that I am really wanting to go one day, but yeah, who knows? Because, you know, travel at the moment is not on my priority list at this stage. But, you know, in the future, it'll be quite nice. A couple of things that I haven't mentioned yet. I was figuring out a bit of the road layout within the city, but I stopped working on that. And even the interchange that I just plopped down, they're just ideas of where I want some of the layouts to go. But I realized that I had to stop working in the city, and I really needed to focus on how that transition from Chinchilla and this city is going to look. Because once again, really would like to capture the essence of a big open space between the two places. I don't want it to feel like, Chinchilla's right next to this city, but I don't really want it to feel like that. So it was sort of important that we had a bit of space. I'm also going to put a couple of mountains around here, just some smaller mountains, but you know, from angles, you don't actually notice that there is a city or that there's Chinchilla on the other side of those places. So I like that because then it just sort of gives a little bit more of a perspective of this huge open area. So that's what we're going to be trying to do around here. I also put in this salt flat. I have just used sand because that is the only color I really have that's the closest. Like, unfortunately, and this is like on my wish list for whatever City Skylines the next one looks like, but I would just love just more terraforming colors to choose from. You know, at the moment we've got sand, oil, or like we've got a couple, but I would love just a huge variety. And that would just be so amazing because white would look so cool around here. In fact, this whole desert really lacks a lot of color because in deserts, and particularly the desert in California and even Nevada, is not just this brown earth. You know, there's so much going on here, and I feel like I just can't capture it quite as well because of the limited types of resources that I have. So yeah, I'm gonna try and make this look like a salt flat, but you know, it's not gonna be perfect. We're just gonna have to work with what we have. Something else that I've done is I've now dragged out this highway that is pretty close to the edge of the map, and I decided to put this highway here because we really needed to be able to get people from the highway on that side coming into the city, and I just don't think that the one lane highway that I had originally was going to cut it. So instead I decided to put this quite large highway that's going to stretch. It actually connects up really nicely to that interchange that I built a little while ago, and that's like a perfect location for it too. So yeah, now we've got this other highway that comes out this way, and I think it actually fits into this area pretty well. It is a little more hidden. There will be a couple of mountains around here again just to hide it away, but I think realistically this makes a bit more sense. If we're going to have a pretty big city over this way, I think we need more than just one highway stretching through. So that's why I decided to place that around here. And again, with these mountains, we are just figuring out the general gist of how they look. I dare say I'm going to be out this way at some stage working on, you know, like doing an episode or two, trying to figure out how we can make this desert really feel like the desert in Nevada and in California. And that's gonna be pretty tricky, but I am very excited for that because I do really love building the more nature-based builds in City Skylines, and I feel like I've neglected it for a little while, so I'm pretty excited to sort of do a little bit of nature-based stuff. But that's to come. At this stage, we're just sort of putting down the general idea. That one mountain I think is pretty detailed, but these guys, I mean, they're not great. I was trying to do this, which I found just outside of Las Vegas, but yeah, I mean, I reckon I could capture it pretty well if I spent a little bit of extra time on it, but like, this isn't it. This is not what we're trying to go for. So yeah, well, I'll try and give it a go. And by the way, if you've done anything like in areas like this in City Skylines, like feel free to jump on Discord and DM me, or you know, show me some of the techniques that you've used for working in areas like this. In fact, just like a quick plug, Discord, like if you ever want to hang out with people who are following the channel and build in City Skylines, we've got like a Discord where people share a lot of inspiration. There's a whole channel dedicated to sharing your builds, and I am on there regularly just checking out other people's builds and getting inspiration. So yeah, if you ever want to jump on and join the Discord, you should totally do that because it's a lot of fun. Okay, so now we are back in the city figuring out the highways. What I wanted to do, I just wanted to give a go at making a bit more of a custom detailed intersection. I don't know why, I didn't really need to prioritize this. I think I was just getting a little bit bored of doing big picture stuff. So here we are working on this intersection. I'm taking direct inspiration from this intersection here, and you know, it's a little bit tricky working with the roads that I already have, particularly like the actual connection, like the off ramps, they were a little bit harder to work with. But I do think that the way that this does function towards the end is like it's great. Like it actually flows really nicely. But good to see how it works when we actually get a little bit more traffic. So yeah, I guess that's a real test. But the idea is I'm going to build this and then just copy and paste it in different areas on this highway, which is another thing that I noticed is that like they've just got like one interchange and they've just like used it in other areas. Of course, because you know they build the interchange, they build the highway, they can just use the same style of interchange. They don't really need to mix it up too much, particularly if this area was like built all at the same time, which is pretty obvious that it is. Another thing that would have really made this highway and all the roads around Marble Mountain really feel a little bit more like California and Nevada, and even just an American place or an American state, is if I used American roads instead of these more, they're very generic. Like they're not of any particular style. I mean, they sort of look like roads in America. They sort of look like roads in Australia. They look like roads in Europe. They look like roads just in general. Whereas, of course, I could have chosen way more American style roads because there's a whole bunch on the Steam Workshop. There's a whole bunch of really great ones. But I've done that on purpose because I never really wanted Marble Mountain to feel like, he's rebuilding California. This is obviously California. And it is very much obviously California that I'm taking inspiration from. But I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I just like that it's still a little bit of a whatever. Like you don't really know where this is. It could be anywhere, but it obviously isn't anywhere. But it has its own vibe going on. So that is the reason why there aren't American roads. We are still using very much the roads that I am given within the vanilla game, plus a couple of extra ones that I've downloaded, but I've made sure that I've downloaded pretty similar roads that you'd find in the vanilla game. So that is the reason why I think the closest thing I have to like American assets are the Amtrak trains. But I'm fine with that. They're too good not to use. Next week, we are going to be working on the city, more around the road layouts in the city and trying to figure out the interchanges and stuff. Like I said, I do want to make this pretty tight, working really well. We're going to be having a lot of people visiting this place, so really got to make sure we've got some pretty strong connections. Before I head off, I want to give a special shout out to some of the long-term patrons. Some of these guys have been following me since 2018, which is a huge amount of support, and I want to give a special shout out to them. Mark Gensema, Bob Ducati, Brandon Ash, Alec Williams, Holly Softy, Oliver Assis, Clayton Hawk, John Van Gert, Christopher C. Penny, and Nick Graham. These guys, amongst others, have been supporting me for a really long time, and they deserve just huge amounts of credit, so thank you guys so much. If you guys are ever interested in supporting the channel like these guys, I would hugely appreciate it. It means that I can release videos and justify the hours that I spent into making these. Link to my Patreon page is in the description below. But guys, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. See ya!